When I think about you, I think about your nickname, the Mad Dog. And people always want to know and wonder, how in the world did such a name like that come with a nice guy like you?
Honestly, I've had the nickname since the 5th grade. We had a PE teacher, kind of like just the coolest guy you could ever imagine. He had played for the 49ers. We were all in the 5th grade. He gave nicknames out to everybody, and he gave me that nickname, and it just kind of stuck with me.
Because, you know, when you think about it, that it was really amazing to have a nickname like Mad Dog for someone who was so reserved and sometimes really shy.
Well, I think the one thing, Jim, and you played sports at the highest level, is the minute you step into the playing competition area, you try to leave everything out there on the court that you can. You leave it all there, no matter what the case may be. Some of us weren't blessed with all of the talent and ability that, a Kobe, a Shaq, a Robert Horry has. And so you have to find ways to make up for it in other ways. Intensity, energy, trying to outwork people, which, effort can solve a lot of things.
And that's exactly what you brought to the Lakers when you played, not only at practice, but in the games as well, when you played in the games.
Well, and that's a great point, Jim, because, everyone's role is different on any team. Right now I'm coaching at Utah Valley. We have players that start, we have players that come off the bench, and then we have players whose job it is to make the practice environment the most intense environment possible. And so I had a little bit of every role. There were some times where I didn't play for 5 or 10 games. Then all of a sudden I'm playing 15 minutes a game. Then someone might get hurt and Phil might need me to start. And so, even when I started, it wasn't extended minutes, but it was different roles that I had to be ready for every time.
And you knew when you played, the crowd was behind you. A lot of times the crowd wanted you to play more so than some of the other guys.
Well, I always felt that support in Los Angeles. My grandfather was, my mother grew up in Long Beach. She was born there. My grandfather spent most of his adult life in Long Beach with ties to LA. And so it's, right now I'm in Utah. We love it here, my wife and I, but LA has a special place in our heart, and just a great community, a great city, probably the best city in the world.
How would you describe your time with the Lakers?
It was beyond belief and beyond expectation, Jim. And part of that is compounded and multiplied by the fact that I got to play with some of the greatest individuals, some of the most talented players that have ever played the game. Kobe Bryant, Shaquille, Robert. Rick Fox doesn't get the credit that he deserved, because Rick was kind of the glue that held everything together. He guarded the other team's best player a lot of the time. When we played, there was a game when Michael Jordan came to town at the end of his career, when he was with the Wizards, and we played them, and Rick Fox guarded Michael for a good portion of that game. And so the Rick Foxes of the world, the people like Brian Shaw, the locker room leadership of a Brian Shaw, and some gratitude to play with great players and great people.
Man, there were a lot of legends, and many people think a lot of egos on that team as well. How did you manage to maneuver through all of those egos that were on that team? Because there were a lot.
I think with tremendous talent, at times there will be an ego. And, another word I like to use alongside of ego is confidence. My high school coach used to talk about having confidence without cockiness. Obviously in the NBA, sometimes you're going to have a little bit of both, and because the talent level is so high. And so I think for me, it was easy to maneuver in those locker rooms because I wasn't at the same talent level. I wish I was. I wish I was, Jim. I worked hard every day to try to attain and have similar talents as an NBA All-Star, but I didn't get there, and that's okay, because I was able to find other niches to help. But yes, there's extreme confidence with many players in the NBA, and that was educational for me to be around also, because if you're going into a hostile arena or a tough game, you want to play with guys that have a big ego, that care, that want to take on the other team's best player.
Mark, there is a saying that opposites attract. And I can't think of two more opposites who were attracted to each other than you and Shaquille O'Neal.
You know, I'll never forget the first time I met Shaq. It was actually in the weight room. It was my first day of training camp, and he came in and just introduced himself, and we kind of hit it off. Phil had his partner up in the exercise ladder stations, and you know, the one thing about Shaquille that I'll say, he's probably one of the most genuine people you'll ever come across in any profession, in any industry. Jim, I know you have a relationship with Shaq, and to see what he's done, not only in basketball, but in the community, from a business perspective, socially, what he stands for, who he is, the great family that he has. Shaq is a role model. Shaq is a powerful role model that our world needs, and I think that's, you know, people respect him for that. I respect him for that, and I'm grateful that I had the chance to play with him.
He had a very personal interest in you, didn't he?
Well, I think, again, you know, I think he had been in the NBA when I came in as a rookie for a number of years, and he wanted to help me. But it's no different than him wanting to help Devin George, Tyronn Lue, Mike Penberthy. And that's just who Shaq is. He was kind of the big brother on the team that helped all of us find our way. Did
he help buy them cars like you? Buy them clothes like you? Not let you go to nightclubs when he was going? He really was your daddy.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll never forget, Shaquille signed a multi-million-dollar extension. You know, I can't remember, it was 50 or 80, and he invited me to go with him. First, he took me car shopping. You know, he wanted to help get me a new set of wheels. He didn't like the minivan I was driving. I said, Shaq, ease up, man, ease up. It's a good car. but then we went to the Big and Tall store right outside of Beverly Hills, right on the border of Westwood and Beverly Hills. And he spent thousands of dollars on the wardrobe. But then we went to the Rolex store at the mall. We ran into J.R. Ryder, another teammate, and Shaq literally picked out a Rolex for every single player on the team to say thank you, because Shaq viewed it as he couldn't be successful without every single member of the team. And that shows you again what Shaquille is like.
And that really shows how much of a man that you are, because he took all this personal interest in you. And I know sometimes it got to be a little bit comical, because he would also say, you know, he didn't want Mark Madsen going to certain clubs. He didn't want Mark Madsen being in certain environments like he was. Now, either he was doing this as your daddy, or he didn't want you to know what he was doing.
No, Shaq was, off the court, Shaq was just a tremendous person. I mean, he again, Jim, and you and I know, we know the person he is. He looked out for all of his teammates. Couldn't be more grateful for the 3 years that I had to be teammates with him. And again, I'm just really excited and happy for all the success that Shaq continues to have, not at a basketball level, but at a life level, to impact others.
And of course, later on when you stopped playing, you know, you were an assistant coach, and it's almost like your playing days prepared you to be an assistant coach for the Lakers.
Well, it was interesting going back in 2013 to coach, to be an assistant coach on staff for the Lakers, because Kobe was kind of going into the last segment of his career. You know, he'd had the Achilles injury, and he was in the process of coming back from that. I'll never forget the first practice that Kobe was back from that Achilles injury, because there was so much anticipation. All the players, you know, Nick Young was the guy who never wanted to back down. And so Nick Young and Kobe would get into it in a positive way in practice, you know, and that just elevated the energy and the emotion and the fight that everyone played with in practice. You know, we didn't quite get to the championship level in those years, but we probably weren't far off either, in terms of had a few injuries gone a different direction.
And you were there on one of Kobe's very, very special evenings too, weren't you?
I'll never forget that night. You're talking about his last game.
Yes.
You know, when he went for close to 60, I think 60. He went for 60 against the Utah Jazz. Before the game, first of all, nobody ever asked Kobe for an autograph. He just didn't do it. You might see a teammate do it or a coach do it once or twice a year, but you really saved that for the championship parade. Kobe just wasn't, you just didn't ask him for an autograph during the season. But that last game, I think it was Nick, asked Kobe for an autograph, and Kobe just signed it. And so then the whole locker room, all the players are sprinting to go get the shoes, the hats, the jerseys. So Kobe signs everybody's autograph. Then he goes out there and gets 60. And just the feeling in the Staples Center that night was amazing. It was, I can't even put words to describe it.
Speaking of championships and rallies, one of the things that people look forward to the most, sure, they wanted to hear everybody and what they had to say, but they wanted to see Mad Dog dance. And Mad Dog did not disappoint with your dance routines at the championship parades.
Jim, the funny thing about that is, the first year, the whole team was dancing now, but I got singled out because certain people said I didn't have good rhythm or didn't have a certain look. I still think I have rhythm. My wife will tell everyone I have rhythm now, but so the first year, I think I got spot shadowed as the guy with no rhythm, which is okay because, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And Shaquille grabbed the mic. He had a song he was going to share with all the people that had come out to support the team, and Kobe was celebrating. It was just, and to be honest, where all those people were and where we were celebrating, it doesn't exist anymore because it was a parking lot. And now it's all been developed into really a great development, but it was a defined and set time in the past that was just a great memory. And all of us, from players to coaches to every fan and supporter that was there, we have a memory etched in our mind that we'll share.
And one of the great things at the parades was when you went up to the microphone and you started to speak in Spanish. The crowd went crazy.
It's, I think, while we were going through the parade, there was a huge Latino base of people that were present at. You had people from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds, but I sensed and I saw there was a huge portion of the group that was of Latino descent. And I actually had lived in Spain for a couple of years on a mission. And so I knew Spanish. And so I thought it was important for me to connect with this huge portion of the fan base that's Spanish speaking, whether it's in LA, the Lakers fans in Spain, or going down towards Mexico City. The Lakers transcends. The Lakers organization, it transcends any one group, that's one of the things that's great about sports is it's all inclusive. And then that was kind of my way of saying thank you to the Latino community that had been such a great support to me and to the team.
There were a lot of us that thought, you know what? Mark Madsen's family tree has many branches.
You know what? It's I think similar to that. That's really what sports does. Sports can bring two people into a locker room that come from vastly different places, but you learn to work together. You learn to communicate. Sometimes there's going to be misunderstandings, and you work them out. And so that's one of the things that I really enjoy.
How often do you dream about those glory days with the Lakers?
Since Kobe's death, I've thought about it so much more. I think at the time, I probably took it for granted because we were one of the top teams every year. You felt like you had a small part in it. And so I took it for granted. And now that Kobe is gone, I've reflected back on it. I've gone onto YouTube and just watched some of those old games and watched my teammates, watched our team, and I'm still in touch with most of the guys from some of those teams, from Brian Shaw to, Brian Shaw, who is the head coach of one of the top G League teams, to really all the guys. And it's just fun to see everyone move forward in their careers and do positive, good things, especially in the community.
Matt, how much did your experience with the Lakers, how much is it helping you now in the current job that you have, not only teaching basketball, but molding the minds of our young men to become better citizens?
Well, at Utah Valley, we have a wide recruiting net. And so we have we've had international players, we've had players from Utah, we've had players from all over the country. And I consider it a privilege to be at Utah Valley. It's the fastest growing university in Utah. And so that tells you people want to be there. Our players want to be there. They want to be part of it. And I want to be with them. I love the players. Last season, I told our guys, I said, guys, outside of faith and family, you guys are my life. Faith and family are at the top. But beyond that, it's the players in our program. They make life fun for me and our staff. I mean, great players, great people, great senses of humor. And at the same time, we were in their shoes years ago. And so sometimes there's a glitch. Sometimes I hit a pothole. Sometimes one of our players hits a pothole. And it's our job to help each other and keep moving forward down the street.
I know your players know about you with the Lakers and everything. I'm just wondering, how often do you tell stories about your days with the Lakers to your players as it pertains to a certain practice, a certain game time situation, or a certain life lesson?
Well, it's not all the time, but I definitely share those because there's a lot of powerful things to be learned. One story I like to tell our guys is just that I got my first start in the playoffs against the Timberwolves, and Shaq could see that I was nervous. So he came up to me and he just said, "Hey, don't try to do too much, but don't try to do too little." And it's a quick phrase, but it helped me because sometimes when you're out there playing, and I only started a few games in my career, okay, but I started some. But sometimes when you're out there with Shaq and Kobe, sometimes the tendency is you're going to watch and let them do it because they're the Hall of Famers. But if you did that, that hurt them because then your man could go double Shaq. Your man could go, double team or blitz Kobe. And that didn't help the team. And so a lesson like that from Shaq and then with Kobe, so many things. I talk to our guys about his work ethic all the time. I mean, Jim, you would see he would get to the Staples Center so early. On a game day, there were times when he got there at 3 o'clock for a 7:30 game, working on his footwork, working on his shooting. And then, there's that phrase, hard work doesn't guarantee you anything, but without it, you don't stand a chance. And Kobe combined hard work with immense talent with a huge heart. And that's the recipe for one of the greatest ever.
And one of the things that maybe I'm sure you talk to your players about because of your own personal situation was work as hard as you can, hang in there, and when you get an opportunity to perform, do it at your utmost best.
That's crucial. That's crucial. You never know when that opportunity to perform is going to come. We had some players on our team, again here at Utah Valley, that didn't play for 5 or 6 games, and then their name is called. And you know what? They were ready. They were ready. Same thing in the NBA for a young player. Jim Clemens, one of the assistant coaches for the Lakers, when I first got to the Lakers, he said, your job in year one is going to be to sit on the bench and watch and learn. And when your name is called, to be ready. And whether it's basketball or football, you have to be ready and you have to be prepared to help the team.
I'd like for you to talk about being a baker because a lot of people don't know of that skill that you have.
Well, my mom and my sister were really good. They were really good cooks. And so growing up, they taught me how to cook. And so early in my career, Gary Vitti, longtime Lakers trainer, he kind of helped get my back better. So I baked him a cake, just as a fun thing. He thought I had poisoned the cake. He's from New York City. He's from the East. I said, no, Gary, this is California. You've been here long enough. I'm not trying to poison the cake on you.
When I think about your career, Mark, I think about you being very lucky, hardworking, but also very, very blessed. Would you agree?
I would agree. I would agree. I think, the whole situation with Kobe and his daughter and everyone on that plane, it just makes you reflect. It makes you reflect. And I was lucky and I was blessed. But I continue to feel blessed because of the relationships and the friendships. I texted Phil. I texted Phil 2 or 3 months ago. He had a play that literally all of his former players that are in coaching, we all run it. It's the sideline out of bounds, and it has a certain name. And so I texted Phil. I said, Phil, we're using your play. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So you know how lucky, blessed, gifted, everything you are, even though you have the nickname. Do your players know about that nickname, Mad Dog?
And some do, some don't. You know, like I said, I'm washed up. It's about our players. You know, but no, I feel very fortunate.
And you know how gifted you are. And I'm wondering, and I've asked this to several other people, is there a saying, a quote, a book, a title of a book that really you like to just live your life by right now?
You know, I was impacted by, I think, growing up in California, even though it was Northern, and even though John Wooden had already retired from coaching, I was impacted by John Wooden. He has a book entitled They Call Me Coach. And I remember being a player at Stanford, and we were on, flying around the Pac-10 at that time. It was 10, not 12. But I remember reading his book, and I remember thinking on the plane as I read the book, I want to get into coaching. I want to get into coaching because I've had a lot of coaches that have helped me. My high school coach, John Rayner, Mike Montgomery at Stanford, Phil Jackson, so many, Flip Saunders, who's no longer with us. I've had so many coaches help me. I wanted to kind of flip the script and try to help our players now at a different phase of life.
And getting back to dancing, when you were on stage dancing and you looked out at those, it was then thousands and thousands of people, that had to really make you feel just super special because they were all there supporting you and having fun with you.
I think that's the thing that I remember most, Jim, is just how much fun it was at that time. Look, winning is fun. When you win a championship, it's fun. But then to go through the streets of LA, for a parade, you had old men and women, you had babies, you had everyone in between. You had people waving towels, you had people with horns, and there was so much joy. We had so much joy as players because we knew we couldn't have won without the support of the supporters and the fans in the streets that day. The people that, when you walk through the airport and you've lost a game or two, the people that give you a word of encouragement. There's no way we could have done that without all the support in LA. And so it was fun. And it was they're memories I'll look back on and always cherish.
Once a Laker, always a Laker.
100%. And to me, that permeates down from the Buss family. Dr. Buss was unbelievable. A brilliant mind. He had a PhD in, I think, chemistry. And so he understood how to run a business, but he also understood people. And that people side has filtered down to every one of the Buss children. And I tell people this all over in California, now here in Utah, the Buss family, in terms of interpersonal relationships and a lot of other things, they're geniuses. They understand how to treat people. They understand that there's a human side to the profession of basketball.